Another episode of With the Chiefs.
Wait. Man, I need more rest.
I hope I've got your last name right there.
It's a very good pronunciation.
You should know better than that now, Dom.
I know.
Yeah. And we're live. Sorry, I've never said that before. But anyway, Dom, I'll let you go into the intro.
Welcome back to another episode of With the Chiefs. Today we've got with us Nick Walker. Nick is a pretty credentialed runner. He some of his achievements from running is being the under 20 steeple champion from 2006. So he's been running for a while and running well for a while. He's also come third at the 2014 World Trail Championships. So that's representing Australia, and coming third is pretty impressive as well. He's currently a teacher, I think, at Redlands in Sydney, and he runs with Run Crew as well. But he's a bit injured at the moment. So, we're pretty fortunate today to have Nick on with us to talk about. I'm sure we'll cover a range of things, but welcome to the show, Nick.
Welcome,
Yes.
Nick.
Thank you, Dom and Luke. I'm excited to be on your show today. I've been following you guys for quite a while now, and as you said, I've been a little bit injured with a knee injury at the moment. But whilst I've been doing a bit of cardio on the bike and on the elliptical, I've actually been viewing your podcast. So it's actually been getting me through some of the longer, boring, monotonous sessions, doing those cardio sessions on the bike and elliptical. So thanks for having me.
No, thanks.
worries.
It's
Good to
very
hear.
nice to hear. Yeah, very nice to hear. What is do you have a favorite episode?
I enjoyed obviously watching your episode with Leo Peterson. He's one of my close mates who lives very locally in the area that I live in, North Ryde. But also listening to Ed Goddard and his journey, and then Kieran Tall as well. They're just a few I've listened to, but it's been, I guess, really insightful looking at their training program. Also, the fact that you guys talk a lot about well-being and the importance of mental health, I think is a really good way to look at running holistically. And it's just good. I've been able to relate to a lot of the podcasts that you guys have put together. So, they've probably been the key parts.
Well, I appreciate that. And we
Awesome.
might have to take that's a clip, isn't it, Dom?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bit of a testimonial. But,
I've given my testimony.
So, Nick, we normally start off just by, I guess, recapping the last 7 days or week. So what's been happening with you?
Yeah, so at the moment, obviously, with my injury, I've had to really listen to my body and my knee. I'm sort of in my third phase of rehab at the moment. So I have fortunately been able to add some cardio in. So on Monday, I did a 10K cycle, but for the first time, I actually went off the spin bike and outside. So I kept it only to 10K only because I just wanted to test the knee. I'm supposed to be keeping it fairly flat at the moment, so not adding in too much gradient. But I was actually up at Boomerang Beach for the first weekend of the school holidays. So really beautiful place. There are a couple of hills though, so I did maybe push the knee a little too far, but I managed to get through almost, I think, just a little over 45 minutes on the bike on Monday. And then following that, I did strength work. I'm doing strength work every day of the week, just so I can come back hopefully really strong. On Tuesday, I actually used I think it's called the Assault machine. It's like a bike where you move the handles back and forth. And I actually did 10 minutes, 30 seconds on and off, which really hit the lactic system. And then I went between that and the spin bike and did 10 minutes on the spin bike, and then jumped back onto the Assault machine and did another 5 minutes, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And by the end of that, I think I did almost half an hour of that. I was pretty buggered. It was almost the same as doing a lactic track session. Tuesdays, I guess I generally like to keep things fairly tempo based or working beyond that threshold. So I've tried to integrate that into my rehab to replicate the training that I have, I guess, consistently been doing. So that was on Tuesday. I did more strength and rehab. On Wednesday, I jumped on the bike again and went along the Parramatta River. Love doing that ride just because it's really flat, and did a 22K cycle. That was just a little over an hour. Then more strength work. And then Thursday, did another cycle as well. just over an hour. But I tried to lift the cadence a little bit on Thursday and yeah, just work the heart rate a little bit more and did strength work. Yesterday was an easier spin bike session. Did around half an hour on the bike again, just on the spin bike, and then did some more strength. And then today, I actually jumped on the elliptical and did an hour on the elliptical and worked in blocks. So I did 5 minutes of keeping the cadence fairly high, and then lifted the elevation slightly just to work on my resistance training, and did that every 10 minutes over the course of an hour. So yeah, pretty diverse training, but I guess I'm just trying to work within what my body and knee is capable of. It's only been 3 weeks since surgery, as I mentioned, so I'm not trying to overdo it at this point in time, but still trying to keep the heart rate going and keep my fitness levels up.
Sounds good. What was the surgery that you had?
So I had knee surgery. So it's a bit of an interesting story. So going back maybe 2 months ago now, just before term 2, I was going for a run. This was in LA visiting my brother, and my knee just suddenly really flared up, and I've never experienced any knee pain before. And I had to stop. I couldn't, and I was just going for an easy run. It was an easy hour, and it got to the point where I couldn't run. So I'm like, I better listen to my body, better stop. So then I didn't really run for a week. And then when I got back to Sydney, I saw a physio, just one of my, just a local physio. And when I saw him, he diagnosed my knee as having ITBS. So pretty common, I guess, injury. And he's like, obviously you've got weakness in your ITB. We've got to work on that. So for 2 weeks, I was working on this ITBS, and the injury wasn't getting any better. And I was doing some slight running on the treadmill, but then it got to the point where I just couldn't run again. I did a run crew session on one of the Saturday mornings, and couldn't make it through half a warm-up lap. And I'm like, something is going on. So I actually went to another physio, got a second opinion. And the physio and the sports doctor at Stadium Sports said that I should get a MRI done. And it wasn't until I had the MRI done that it showed that I had a condition in my knee called OCD, which is known as osteochondritis dissecans, which is a joint condition. And mine was between the tibia and I think the fibula, and it's where the two knee joints rub together, and then the cartilage wears down until it pretty much wears away completely. So I actually had floating cartilage in my knee. There was just these two big chunks just floating in my knee, and it was pretty severe. Obviously, with cartilage, it's something at my age. I'm now close to 36, and it's a condition where I guess you can't really grow cartilage back. But it's also a condition that actually affects young junior athletes. So particularly athletes who do a lot of excessive training. And when I was a junior, I was training pretty heavily for athletics. I've been running since the age of around 8 years old. I was also a big swimmer, big on football and soccer. And I did have knee pain, but I always just, contributed that to growing pain, not actually OCD, but it's something that I've had since then. And it's only really emerged now that I'm a senior athlete. So I guess I've been lucky in a way that, for the last, over 20 years, that this condition really hasn't shown until now as an athlete. And now I've had the surgery. I had to get an arthroscopy done. So they cleaned the knee joint out. They had to do a medial alignment where I think they put the knee back in place. And then I also had a microfracture done in the knee just to generate plasma to the actual joint, which can assist with, I guess, strengthening the existing cartilage that's in the knee. So, a fairly invasive surgery. And it wasn't until I saw my surgeon, Sam McDessie, recently, where he showed me some photos where I actually could see the severity of the surgery and the injury that I guess made me really think carefully about how I train and what I do to not affect the surgery that I've had to make sure that I recover and do the rehab so that the knee can get strong, and hopefully I can run again as well.
Yeah, wow.
Geez.
Did they say anything? So you basically had it lingering for all that time.
Yeah, I did. But the funny thing was that I didn't feel any pain. Like, I've had calf strains and I've never had a major stress fracture ever in my life. Like, this is sort of the first major injury that I've had, but there was no lingering pain until that one run that I did where I suddenly felt, this sudden pain. That was the only time I've ever felt it. When I was younger, I think I did get some knee pain, but as I said, I just thought it was growing pains and left it. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I've just been lucky during this time that it hasn't really fled up until now.
Right. Okay.
Indeed.
That's crazy to
Some-
think that it can be sort of in the background to a certain degree, and then, but you're not being actually affected from a pain perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. So, did they say anything more specific at what could have caused it, or is it literally just from hard training from a young age?
Yeah, well, that's from talking to my sports doctor and surgeon. He just said it's being active from a very young age, and it's
Yeah.
usually something that's happening that happens during bone development as an adolescent. So I guess there's nothing that I've done really over the last 20 years or so. I mean, I guess I've been running. Maybe if I wasn't an athlete or an avid runner, I probably may have never have picked up on this. But, I guess as you get older, your bones do wear down and your joints do wear down as well. But yeah, it's just funny because I've never actually had knee pain ever before. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the stereotype that runners get knee pains, but I
Yeah,
don't
you
think
hear
it's
that
often
from
true. But I
non-runners.
guess in
being
this case
like-
it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What you get it from everyone being like, you're gonna wear out your joints, but in this case,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
you never really take it seriously. I'm like, well, that's so general. That's such a generalized comment, and I never
Yeah.
thought that I would have surgery on my knee after that. I'm always like, no, knee issues aren't, never an issue for me. And now I'm recovering
Yeah.
from surgery. Anyway,
Yeah. So that was
too soon.
that's what you had to do straight away, is what they said. Surgery was pretty much the only option.
Correct. It was the only option. I did get an opinion from 3 other surgeons, and they all said you need surgery. There was no way around it. I guess surgery is the last resort. But given the size of the chondral fragments that were in my knee, they're like, no, we've got to remove it. Otherwise, your knee will never recover and you'll never be able to run again. So,
Okay.
I'm hoping that I still have a long running journey ahead of me. The sports doctor I saw, she was really blunt, and she's like, you'll never run again, after this surgery. But then when I spoke to my surgeon, he's like, trust me, like once I do the surgery on you, you'll have another 20 years ahead of you. And he kind of gave me some hope, but I guess like the sports doctor or specialist always gives you the worst case scenario. So, and I think, moving forward, hearing those positive words from the surgeon made me feel a bit more motivated with my rehab and recovery. If I took really seriously on board what the sports doctor had said, I'd probably be doubting myself, but I'm just trying to, push through and be positive and not have any self-doubt.
Yeah. Well, it speaks
Yeah,
to
definitely.
getting multiple opinions from different people, because obviously you went to one person which said something that wasn't, and if you kept running on it, even though, I mean, the pain was like, I imagine, next level, because you're having to stop within like 500 meters, so that's not
Yes,
like something you can run through. But yeah, getting it multiple opinions is critical.
Oh, it's so important. If I didn't see that second physio, I would have still been injured right now and treating ITBS. So the other thing as well, and I guess this is for anyone else going through an injury, is definitely get multiple opinions from surgeons, because the other thing that was quite difficult were the wait times. Given we've just come from COVID and thinking about surgery time and all of that, like one surgeon at the Mater Hospital said I wouldn't be able to get in for surgery for another 3 months. Whereas Sam, I was very lucky. It was actually a friend of my of the assistant principal at the school I work at. So he was able to fit me in for an appointment straight away and then actually get me in for surgery within 3 weeks of my diagnosis. So I think working with your network and your professional network, I had Ben St. Lawrence, my coach, reaching out to runners from the group who have had surgery and reaching within his network. But at the end of the day, it came to whoever could do it first, who had the most experience as well, because surgery doesn't always work out. There's some, I've heard of some runners who have unfortunately not had the best surgery and then are still having knee problems now. So if you can get someone good and get in sooner rather than later, I guess you'll be back on your feet running again. So I was lucky in that regard.
Yeah, geez. And you mentioned your coach, Benny Saint. Has he had much input in like the recovery and
Yeah.
the training for that, or have you got any other physios or strength coaches on board?
Yeah, so I'm currently working with both my physio, so at Stadium Sports. So her name's Juliet. She's been amazing at just with setting me weekly strength programs and adding a lot of variety and really challenging me. Ben's sort of come on more from the supportive end and sort of just been checking in with me, seeing how I'm going. Obviously, not running sucks because I'm so used to doing it every day, but yeah, he will be coming on board hopefully as of next week because I get to jump in the pool and start doing some more, water running and cardio sessions. So he's going to assist me with a program as of next week. It's been more from a supportive ground. It's probably been more me working one on one with a physio that's been assisting me with my strength work at the moment. And I've also been working with a naturopath. And I never had much faith in a naturopath until now, but they've been working, she's been working a lot with fascia, so with muscle manipulation, and that has actually really reduced the inflammation around my knee, allowing for a bit of a faster recovery. So obviously my knee was really swollen when I first had the surgery, and now that inflammation has gone right down. And to be honest, like I'm walking pretty pain free now and moving so much better. So between the naturopath and the physio, it's really assisted with my recovery.
Well, what is
And
is what? Oh, sorry, Dom, cut you off. I don't know what a
No, no, no.
naturopath is. That's what I was going to ask. Sorry.
Well, I guess, they work. I don't know the exact description for a naturopath, but I know that they work with muscle fascia. So that's sort of like the lining between your like around the muscle, and it holds all your muscles together. So
Right.
like the physio tends to go in deep and does a lot of remedial based work, but with the naturopath, they kind of do more gentle massage, but they also do
Right.
hold and release kind of methods as well.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was going to say, down the track, are there any races that you're targeting, or is it just sort of get running again first and then go from there?
I mean, I was really forward thinking. I'm like, I'd love to give the city to surf a go, but I think that's way too soon. And I think if I had it my surgeon's, way, I probably won't be running for another 3 or 4 months. But I'd like to maybe aim for New South Wales 10K, do a few track meets, even a few trail meets over the summer, and then next year I'd love to aim for the World Mountain Running Championship. So that was my goal this year. And I'm kind of glad that I'm not running because it's in Thailand. I'm not a huge fan of running in the heat, given my experience in Hawaii where I had a really bad heat stroke. But I'm hoping next year the World Mountain Running Championships are in Europe, and I'd love to hit the mountain running circuit. So I guess just a bit of more track meet focus at this point in time. But I think right now the initial focus is on getting through the rehab and the recovery. And once I know I can run, I think that will give me a bit of confidence. Once I do that first jog, I'll see how I go. Then start setting some short term and long term goals.
Is there different? Is there different? Is there a plan for the rehab in terms of, is there different stages that you've got to hit? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I've still got another 5 more weeks of strength rehab. So, that will involve obviously working on my stabilizers, quads, everything around the knee joint, hammy, and then slowly increasing. As I said, I'm jumping in the pool next week. So that's sort of getting into my 3rd trimester of recovery, where I'll be able to do some cardio, get more movement in the knee through kicking. The physio did advise that I wear a pool boy and work more my upper body, but I should be able to get in the pool and hopefully start increasing my my distance as well as my pace in the pool. And hopefully by that 8th week, so I'm still 5 weeks off, that's when I can slowly start jogging and getting back into the running. But apparently it's going to be a bit of a slow haul. I'll be jogging for a couple of weeks before I then get back into proper training. So it's probably still another 3 months before I can start running again.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And maybe, sorry to rehash it, but were you in like sort of panic mode trying to figure out what to do before surgery?
Yeah, I mean, I was to be honest, quite nervous about it because I spoke to another runner in my running group who had the same surgery, and she was just saying, look, it's a really long recovery. It could be up to 6 months before you start running again. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh my god, like I've never literally
Yeah.
had more than 2 weeks off. So I was rather panicked beforehand, just knowing what lay ahead of me. But the way I've just had to change my mindset completely to I'm going to recover. I've had my surgery, and I've just got to get the strength work done, not have self doubt, and move forward, but not be too confident either. As I said, the knee pain stopped now. I'm walking fine, but also respecting the knee and the surgery that I've had as well.
Mm. So, in terms of mentally shifting for that, obviously you've been so used to in the past training, and as you said, you've only had a few weeks off. Did you have to like start shifting? For example, all right, I've got a training week. These are the key sessions, and now you're sort of shifting mentality to all right, I've got a rehab week, and these are the key things. Have you just like reframing it all in your head?
I have, and I think that's actually helped me. What I've been doing with my rehab is that I'm making sure that I do my rehab at the same time that I actually would have done my training session. So when I go to the gym, it's at the same time as what I do my Saturday morning tempo. So it still feels like I'm not losing the structure because I know for every athlete, structure is so important.
Yeah.
We're very regimented with how training goes. So yeah, I'm making sure that I train at the same time that I'd usually train. And yeah, I guess I'm also repositioning my goals. I guess my short-term goals are getting through the rehab and the recovery. It was quite frustrating because I was supposed to do, the New South Wales mountain running champs on the day or the weekend after I had surgery. So just doing like reshifting the competition to then focusing on surgery, I've just had to remove any sort of running competition thought from my mind and just focus on recovery. I think it's good to set long-term goals to keep driven, but I think if you start, I guess, being too caught up on what could have been, or or what I should have done, or could I have done something better? Could I have done this race? And you start losing a bit of hope. And I think to maintain motivation, you just got to keep looking forward and moving forward with recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whenever I've had to shift something, it's like you said, looking too far into the future can run into problems because you're always
Yeah.
projecting. But it's nice, like that you said, you've structured it where you just, 1 week is a nice time frame, and keeping the structure. That's actually one of the biggest things that scares me about having that is you're just so conditioned week to week to training, and obviously the benefits that it provides mentally. So yeah, it would be very challenging losing that.
Yeah, I mean, it could always be worse. Like I was just thinking, I'm like, imagine if I was in a wheelchair and I actually couldn't
Yeah.
do any cardio. Like I need to put things into perspective, and I'm just so grateful that I can at least, be on a spin bike or go out and actually ride a bike outdoors. Like as long as I'm
Yeah.
doing some form of exercise, that's keeping me driven.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, all right. Well, thanks for going to that. Maybe we'll
No,
just talk about Dom. Obviously, not much is happening in terms of training. Do you want to give, I guess, people an update
Yeah.
on what's happening with you?
Yeah, well, I guess on Sunday I felt like a little bit of a tickle in my throat in the morning. I did a COVID test, but it was negative. But that afternoon I was like had a really bad fever all of a sudden and was just in bed. Um, and like all that night was not great. But I woke up Monday morning and was like, oh, this isn't too bad. It's just like a bad cold. I did a test and it was positive. So I was like, okay, I got COVID. But my girlfriend had it a few weeks earlier. And for her, it was just like a bad cold. Like she didn't miss a day of work and wasn't in bed or anything at all. She just kept on powering through. So I think I had that sort of expectation in my mind. So I kind of just tried to keep on working as much as I could, despite having like really bad fevers and stuff. And then Tuesday I still had pretty bad fevers and everything, and I was in a work meeting and ended up just fainting, which was a bit scary. Luckily, Beck was in the same room, so she sort of got me and made me lie down and stuff. And yeah, after that, it was a bit of a wake up call to like take things seriously and just not push it. Like, so I just, yeah, took the next days off work completely and was just, yeah, lying in bed. But yeah, it was a bit of, yeah, a wake up call. And I guess like all the race plans have kind of gone out the window now. I was meant to be doing this 100 miler next week. And I don't know, I'm feeling better and better every day. But yeah, I can't hold like the same expectations of the race of what I would have had previously. But yeah, it's been slowly getting better and better. Like I think yesterday I got on the exercise bike and did an hour, and then I've done another hour today. So I'm back moving and stuff. But yeah, just like I'm over the worst of it, recovering now. So yeah, that's how my week's going. It's just been COVID and being sick. It's weird. You kind of forget how to be sick because you haven't been sick for so long. But yeah, this is what it's like.
Mate, fainting was. I remember getting the text from you, just reading it, being like, "Am I reading this correctly? What the hell? What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
And then yeah, just lucky Beck was with you. But it's a bit scary. Do you think maybe a bit of because you a bit of dehydration as well, or I don't know?
Yeah, I think just all the fevers and everything, you're sweating a lot, and
Yeah.
I think that it affects like your heart and it affects everything. So I think that things just probably weren't working properly, and your brain's probably not getting enough oxygenated blood, and just I don't know, goes into panic mode. But yeah, that's the first time I've ever fainted from being sick, which is weird. But it's a strange disease. Yeah, real like weird brain fog as well, which I don't know. I've never really felt that sort of feeling before. But yeah, no, it was weird.
Yeah.
What about you, Smitty? How's your
Me,
week going?
yeah, good. Better than that description, Dom. Sorry, but um, jeez. Yeah, good. Had this week. I'll give a bit of a recap of the week. So Monday I think was pretty easy. Tuesday this week is very light in terms of the sessions and the work because it's obviously race week. So Gold Coast was today. I'll talk a little bit about the race, but essentially on Tuesday, I think the session was a taper session. It was like a Mona fartlek, which is the first time I've done that, which is good. It's like obviously it wasn't too much work in total, but what did we do? I think it was I can't remember what it was.
2x90,
Yeah, that's right. And
4x60,
it
4x30,
got quicker.
4x15.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was
How do you know how far you went?
no, I don't actually, because it was all sort of
Okay.
one activity, and I was really in the mindset of this is a taper session, so it actually it felt it was hard. Like it felt harder because I'm expecting not to be working hard, but then just like looking down at the watch, following the prescribed power and paces, like you still got to be working hard. But it was good. I think after the 5K, running, taking the mileage a little bit down, and then running on Tuesday, I could tell my legs were starting to freshen up, which was really nice. Um, then Wednesday was Wednesday was easy. Thursday was not a session, which we normally do a session on Thursday. It was literally just some almost like strides. I was like 30. I think it was 30 seconds, really like fast, like a really fast stride, and then 1:45, 1 minute 45 tempo times by 6. So it was just again, I think getting the legs moving, and then Friday just super easy before today, which was the race. I realized when I picked up my bib that I was in the A. I was in the A, so I wasn't in priority or
Oh, really?
elite. Yeah, I don't know.
What the hell?
I think I mucked that up in the application, or I did it too late. But essentially, when I was running to the race, I was kind of like in panic mode, trying to find because I was lining up where the A's were, but it was really far down the back, and there was like just so many
Yeah.
people because the time, what's it called, the the like projected in the A was anywhere from 117 to 2 hours, I think, or
Yeah. Right.
so lucky I moved up the front of A and I saw Arthur and I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
hey mate. He's like, what the fuck are you doing there? And I was like, yeah, I was just said, I don't know, I'm in A. He's like, come on, come through. So I went through,
Yeah.
which is nice. Thank you,
Yeah.
Arthur, for geeing me up to push through because I was just literally standing behind the rope, like shooting myself a little bit. But I don't think it would have been too bad. But it was nice to push up.
Nah.
Um, all right, in the spirit of not rambling, so basically the weather was all right. The weather was all right. Like it was meant to be raining, but it was like a drizzle. And being in the Gold Coast, normally it's like I don't know, 20 degrees and a little bit humid. So I feel the rain actually definitely played in our favor. So went out the plan the plan was to go out sort of 3:23 pace, very very ambitious. So I did that and went through 5k. I think it was like almost like 17 flat. Then
Wow.
through 10k in like 34:10, which is actually funny. That was my time at Sydney Harbour last year. So I
Oh,
kind of
right.
kind of looked at that, being like, geez, I've come a long way in a short period of time, which is awesome. And then basically, I knew. See, it's funny because you come to get to really understand your threshold pace, and I knew I was pushing it a little bit, but I was kind of being a bit ambitious. I had one thing I did, which is a little bit different, was take the Morton gels, take a standard Morton gel before the race, like 15 minutes before, and then as I'm going through 10k through 11k, Sally was advising that I take like a caffeine gel as well, which I feel gave me a bit of a kick, which is good, and they're really really good on my stomach. Had no issues in that regard, but um, then yeah, so through 11k, took the gel, was feeling good, but like 12, 13. Not to say I blew up, like I just went from running 323s to maybe 327, 328s. So still solid, but obviously you're just feeling legs are getting really heavy. You can't hold the same pace. It's just getting really difficult. And the half marathon I find is a little bit of a challenging one because when you're sort of halfway through a 10k, you really just got to push, or you're pushing the whole way. You don't know when. Like I feel like I never knew when to just go. Um,
Yeah.
um, so through 15. Yeah, so I got to about 15Ks, and it was actually really good working with a few people. Like we're taking turns of just surging, going out in front, going out in front. So that was really nice. I wasn't in no man's land for the race, but yeah, ended up just being me and two other guys towards the end, and basically sticking together, working together. This other guy just took off after, which was good to see him charge. And then it was me and this other guy just like going back and forth, back and forth. I ended up just getting him, but I stopped looking at my watch. I was just like suffering. I just wanted to get through it
Yeah.
and push like as hard as I can, but without 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 blowing up, which is funny because you're still kind of just holding back, if that
Yeah.
holding back and not like running all out, but still trying to find where that limit is, and sometimes it's hard to find. But essentially, yeah, 4Ks to go, I was really started hurting, and you're pushing. Then yeah, see, I think the last K when I was G'ing up was like a 3:15 or something. So it just makes you think, I don't know, could I have pushed it harder, or could I have held 323s? But there's something about the last K that just you G up
Yeah.
for. And then maybe I was thinking about it after, if I held a faster pace, I might have blown up. Like you sort of know what the
Yeah.
pace is. so
Yeah.
so it's
Exactly.
ambitious thinking. But anyway, crossed the line in 73. Sorry, 72.53. 72.53.
Well done.
Thank you. Very big PB. I'm
Epic.
stoked. So Canberra ran 74.58 a few months before. So it's encouraging that this training I'm doing with Sally is really, really paying off and gives me a lot of hope. Just going into Melbourne training for the marathon. So I'll start doing a 12-week or whatever's the remaining time, just get into marathon training, and hopefully I won't say the time. Maybe you can just imagine what time I'm trying to break. I'm a bit like that.
Yeah.
No, 2:30. I want to break 2:30. I'm saying it. So that'll be the goal going in, but fingers crossed. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. So that's a very long-winded training update. Actually, I will mention, Mum raced today. Her
Oh wow.
first
Well
5K.
done.
It was really, really good to really good to see. It was funny. Straight after the race, she's like, "Luke, it's all about me now. Just come on." So yeah, no, it was nice. It was really nice seeing Mum get into running,
Mm.
and she's never been into running before. But you can tell, like, having that tangible goal has really pushed her. Like, having something to train for. Oh, I need to get fit. What if it's like sort of the fear and also the excitement of having a race has G'd her up. And yeah, who knows? Like, Mum will do. She wants to do the 5K in Melbourne as well. I'm trying to convince her to do the 10K, but she's basically just starts yelling at me when I suggest 10Ks. But we'll see. Maybe I'll organize some training for her. And yeah, but no, that's really, really nice to do. But yeah, that's my update. Sorry for the 10-minute
Yeah.
update.
No, well
That's
done,
good.
Luke. I was going to say, you said you ran the Canberra half. How did
Yep.
the Gold Coast half compare to the Canberra half? What did you do differently in that race than what
Yeah.
you did in the Canberra half to get that PB?
Well, that's a good question. Because I started the training program with Sally, and we were only sort of just beginning. So basically, after we really then started putting in like a good structured training block. And even though the mileage was down, I think I've talked about it, the sessions were just so much meatier. And obviously using power, they were a lot more specific, because I felt like I was training really well at threshold, which helped. Which in the past I've used heart rate, and I've actually religiously looked at heart rate and just noticing what threshold, like true threshold, feels like compared to what because I would like look at my watch before Sally's program and essentially be like, oh, my heart rate's 180, for example, and slow down. And it's like, that's not how that actually works. Like, so,
Yeah.
so I left a lot. I think I left a lot of fitness on the table from training like that, even though like, I did well to get to where I was, but I think this program and having Sally sort of look over and give me guidance and give me all the, like, I'm learning so much in this process as well. So I think just continuing to be trained smart will be good. But to answer your question, just doing the bigger sessions. So like, I noticed I sort of fell apart in Canberra. Like, I slowed down quite a bit and my legs like were not really turning over, and it was a lot more painful. I noticed from doing those bigger sessions, like for example, the biggest session we did was 9 by 2K. And then we did like 8 by 2K before, and just like 7 by 2K. So building into those and like really pushing hard um, helped me. Like, I felt stronger towards the end of the race, and obviously running my fastest K at the end sort of suggests that. So I think it's just a big bank of training all came together. And yeah, I think the gains are a little bit harder to come by, but because I kind of even said to Sally, like, I don't know, can I keep improving? And she's basically like, yeah, there's nothing that stops you from improving if you're just training well. And like, I used to run 130 Ks and always stress about running. I got to run, 110 to 140 Ks. But I mean, I've been running 70 to 100 Ks for this block, and I've gone to another level for myself. So it's not always, it's more about this. I would say it's more about being specific with the training. And I don't think it's something I could have done on my own, to be honest, because I also have a lot of, um, I have a lot of blind spots in my training, like because there's a lot of things I can't see. Like we did actually, that's another thing. We did a lot of hard like VO2 max training, like 145 reps. So speed is another big thing that I was missing before. Yeah, so it's a combination of just training heaps better. So it's really exciting to see, like, all right, so we'll do another training block and get to another race. So yeah, I hope that
Nice.
answers your question.
No, it does. How long until your marathon? How many more months do you have?
I think I can't remember when Melbourne is, but I think it's 3 months or so.
Middle of October. Yeah.
Yeah,
You'll have
yeah, 3 months.
a 3 month block and practice that pacing and that quality, and I think I agree with you. It's not all about quantity, it's about quality sessions as well. I know as distance runners we're getting quite caught up with how much mileage do you do a week, or what do you do, but I think if you are working beyond that heart rate and working beyond threshold, but
Yeah.
also hitting that speed, hopefully that will pay off in the marathon. So it sounds like you're on a pretty good track.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. And that's another thing I will mention is varying the training has made it a lot more enjoyable. I felt like my training before was kind of monotonous because I was just, doing the same thing and not really having an outside person looking at it. So the variance in the training has been good as well. So yeah, happy with
Nice.
it. Thanks for asking that question.
Well done.
All right. Well, maybe we will, if you don't mind, we'll go a little bit into sort of how you got into running, and just just a bit of background on your journey so far.
Yeah, sure. So from a young age, I was actually a swimmer. So I was in the pool at the age of around 3 years old. Pretty much grew up in the pool, and I started doing squad training from the age of around 8. And at that point, I was doing 6 sessions a week from a very young age. And that was through to around the age of 12. I got to state and nationals in swimming. 100 meters backstroke was sort of my key event. I was really good at short course, but then I started doing cross country at school, and then did little athletics. I joined Northern Suburbs Little Athletics Centre when I was 8 years old, and I was actually balancing running with swimming for quite some time. But I realised when I got to high school that it just wasn't manageable. Doing both the swimming and the running. I'd be swimming in the morning, and then I'd be doing running sessions in the afternoon. But my first coach was Sally McGrady, who I don't know if you guys know of her, but she unfortunately passed away from breast cancer a few years ago. But she really motivated and inspired me to stick to running, and hence why I'm running now all these years later. But yeah, from around the age of 13 at high school, that's sort of when my running started to take off. So under her guidance, I got through to state cross country, and I was running at a fairly high level. I was doing mainly 2 or 3 sessions a week, keeping the training fairly minimal, and was with her for a couple of years. But I grew to love running from a young age. Then the age of 16, I joined Alan Nolan, who trains down at Rotary Athletics Field. And that was when my training really started to lift. Like I was training with some of, the big guns, like Caleb Wagner. They were pretty big at the time. And Vlad as well, who's a big trail runner as well now. But we were doing some big sessions, and I remember my mileage suddenly picked up to close to 100k a week at the age of 16. So I pushed myself, and I managed to get to nationals. I placed at nationals and got some really strong, solid results. So I was with Alan for a couple of years throughout my high school years. Then he sort of built a really solid foundation for me with running. He got me into the strength work. He got me understanding, the importance of running with a group, and he was pretty hard as a coach when it came to the training. Like, he made me very disciplined. But then when I left high school, I went to uni, went to UNSW, and there I joined Ross Foster, who's part of Ride Athletics Club. I think Kate Spencer might have trained under him for a while. But that was when I started to kind of progress from, cross country as my key focus. And I was doing 1500 3Ks, versing Ryan Gregson. Travis Prigg was another key runner. Jeff Risley and Tom DeCano were sort of my key runners in that age group. So very competitive age group. But when I moved off to uni, that's when I started focusing on steeplechase, and Ross was my steeplechase coach. And we did lots and lots of sessions, jumping from a steeple into a sand pit, and just training for that. And that's sort of, how I placed at nationals. And I sort of trained with him for a couple of years. You can see I've kind of moved from coach to coach, but from every coach that I've joined, I've learned something new, which has transitioned into how I coach, because I'm now an athletics coach coaching young juniors. But I picked up something from each coach, whether it be how you do strength training, how you do your endurance training, how you do sprints training, and how that's all intertwined. So then from my journey with Ross Foster, I then moved on to Ron Bendel, and I did a completely different sort of training than what I've ever done before. I was doing a lot of speed endurance with him. I was actually running at that point with like Liz Clay, who's obviously a hurdler now, and Bella O'Grady, some of our top female sprinters, Anthony Collin. But I was pushing myself. I know, Luke, you were talking about doing speed training, and virtually most of my sessions were speed endurance based sessions where I was working beyond threshold. I was doing 2400s, but the sprinters were joining me for each cycle, so I was pushing myself. And I think I did like a low 32-minute 10K doing that kind of training, but I did find myself being trained by sprinters and not actually running with a proper distance running squad. I had maybe one or two other 800 runners who joined me for each session, but it was definitely a different type of training. But I learned the importance of speed training, incorporating that into my work. And then it was actually Ron Bendel who got me into trail running. So he goes, let's, diversify your training a little bit. Let's do, a Sydney Trail Series meet. So I did the Manly Dam Trail Run. That was back in 2014. And I absolutely loved it. Like, I have always felt, for me as an athlete, I thrive best off track. So whether that be cross country or mountain running, I've kind of got good leg strength for that. So once I gave that a go, I'm like, I love this. I was kind of moving away from the track and the competitive atmosphere to then being a trail runner where all of that's removed. And I know, Dom, from you doing some of your trail runs, you probably understand, like, it's just you and you're kind of versing yourself in a way. Obviously there's competition, but it's such a different style of running. You've got a different crowd of runners who are part of the competition as well. And there's just a really nice community around the trail and mountain running scene. So I really adapted to that. And then I competed at World Champs under Ron's guidance. And I was actually doing a lot of solo training in the lead up to that. So a lot of trail runs, but just a lot of hill training, going off track. And I did still do, I think, 2 sessions a week on the track. And then all of my other runs were done, in Lane Cove National Park, or going out to the Blue Mountains and doing Narrow Neck, or, along the Great North Walk Trail. So, after that, I then, thought I actually need to train with a proper group. And then in 2016, I joined Run Crew, and I've been with Run Crew ever since. And I think particularly now that I'm working full time as a teacher, and not having as much time, and I'm sure you guys can relate. I don't know if you both work full time, but having a group for me to train with has really helped push me a little bit. I do a lot of my sessions throughout the week by myself, but on the Saturdays, when we do our tempo sessions at Centennial Park, those group runs for me have been really motivating. And that's kind of kept me focused and engaged whilst I've been working full time. So I've been coached by Benny St. Lawrence and really appreciated his guidance, skill and experience. I've also got a great bunch of runners and competitive runners to run against as well. So, that's definitely helped me. I think I've kind of realized since doing a lot of solo training and now running with a group the importance of group training. I wish I could do more of it during the week. Unfortunately, with my work, I work as a year advisor, so my afternoons are filled with parent meetings in the morning, before school, and after school, and every day is quite different. So I tend to be more flexible with my own training during the week, but on the weekend, I make sure that I hit that Saturday session and do that. So yeah, since I'm running with Run Crew, I think my training, I've been doing track, I've been doing trail, I've been doing road, I've been doing every type of running. Even though I do prefer trail and mountain running, but I've been challenging myself, and I'm obviously not the best in the group. I probably sit in the middle of the group, but in the middle of the pack on Saturday mornings. But every session, like, I am pushing myself. I'm virtually finishing on my hands and knees. So, yeah, I'm very grateful for those sessions.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
Definitely.
Kieran was just talking to Kieran before, giving us an insight into those Saturday sessions, which are quite. I didn't realize how. Well, I've talked to Otto as well, who's actually my next door neighbor, and
yes,
yeah, so I get insight, and those are pretty full on sessions on the Saturday. But I noticed again, obviously, the like to take the. Do you still do the long run on the Sunday? You keep, and then you take it easy, because I think that's what
yeah,
Benny loves is a slower long run
yes.
as well.
Yeah, no, I do my Sunday long run every day, obviously pre-injury.
Yep.
I do that as well. I haven't been doing that as much with the crew. I tend to do that more solo, or I might join Leo or other mates to do that. But yeah, it's always been the Saturday morning, threshold or tempo based session, or Healy tempo. I love to do a good Healy tempo on a
Yeah.
Saturday morning, and the Sunday long run.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have you got a favorite session or?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually funny. Kieran was mentioning that one of his favorite sessions was 3x3K or 4x3K, and that's one of my favorite, where you do 3K pretty hard, try and keep the times consistent, or try and get quicker each 3K, and then jog the 500. So it's a fairly continuous session. But when you're running around the white fence, you can choose to run the road or on the trail. I like to run on the trail. I do find, particularly by that last 3K, like, you're pushing beyond what your body might be capable of, but you just feel great after the session after you finish it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I also enjoy the Healy tempo. Now, usually everyone complains when they're like, we got a Healy tempo. Everyone's like, oh, Healy tempo. But they're tough sessions running up that Healing Centennial Park for like almost 400 meters. But you just feel the gains and benefits in the training post that session. Yeah, you're constantly working hard. So I also enjoyed that session.
What is you mentioned like you lean more towards trail from a because you're sort of maybe naturally better is what you said, or it's more suited to that strength. But what about from an enjoyment perspective, like track
Uh,
versus trail?
yeah, I mean, and once again, I'm going to bring this back down to my work. So when I'm at work, I am constantly being, like, I've got teachers, I've got parents, I've got students coming up to me 24/7 throughout the day. So if I go and do a trail run where it's quiet, it's peaceful for me, like, it's such a mindful experience. Just just hearing silence for me is great. So, um, you know, um, I love that aspect of it. I love being amongst nature. I try and I focus on my breathing and my time, but I try and actually not focus too much on time. I focus more on how I feel as opposed to the time itself.
Yeah.
And that's the part sort of I enjoy it. Whereas at the track, you're constantly trying to hit times. You've got, it's great from a competitive sense. You're constantly working with other athletes, and you're probably pushing yourself that much more. But there's a lot of distraction going on around you. Whereas when you're, in a national park trail running, it's like you get that feeling of solitude that you may not
Mm.
get at the track. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think, yeah, I think definitely more on, like, if I can relate it to anything, on a long run, for example, just going out
Mm.
and sort of tuning into a certain pace. it doesn't have to be quick, but you just can, and maybe listening to some music, you're just very relaxed. But I've never thought of relaxed on a track, so I can definitely relate to that, especially the speed. There's something about doing like a speed session on a track is just like, oh, I really want this to be over with. Um, which
Yeah.
which is interesting. But in terms of your training, obviously you've worked with quite a few different coaches, which I imagine have different sort of perspectives on training. What have you? How's it changed? How's your sort of training changed over the years? Is there anything that sticks out?
Yeah, I mean, I think from joining Run Crew, actually, I will say that the style of coaching is almost like all my previous coaching styles turned into one. So, for
Mm.
example, I get my speed sessions on a Tuesday, and that's sort of what I used to do with my old coach, Ron Bendel. I'll do, you know, off road training on a Thursday that they've written into my program where I get to do some hill training, and that sort of reminded me of what I used to do with Ross Foster. My Saturday morning runs are like the same that I used to do with Alan Nolan at Rotary Athletics Field, where I'm running with a group of people, but really pushing myself. But I think the key thing, that's really stood out to me, particularly from Benny and Gary's sessions with Run Crew, is that they're the sessions are quite diversified. I know Saturday morning might seem, like we're doing white fence laps, but the training differs from weekend to weekend. We're not doing the same thing over and over again. And that's sort of the training throughout the week as well. Ben doesn't mind if I go off track to do one of my tempo sessions. I could be doing it on the side of the road, but as long as I'm hitting the time frames, I'm keeping the training fairly consistent. That's the key thing. So I'm glad that I've joined Run Crew because I'm getting all the different coaching styles into one, which has been really helpful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In terms of um, your races, if you think about sort of, because you've sort of done a bit of everything, I would imagine. What are some of the
Yes.
what are some of the trail races you've done, for example? If we can go into
Yeah. So
one of those.
Yeah. So I've done a few. I've gone over to Hawaii. I've been to New Zealand, done the Waiheke Trail half. I've been over to Japan, done a few trail series over there. And I guess, yeah, just the one thing that I love probably most about the trail running, so you get other type of runners that you meet along the way.
Mm.
I've got friends who I can now stay with when I go overseas. I've got, it's good to get an insight on their Strava as well, what type of sessions they do. But yeah, the I guess looking at the different meets that I've done, the gradients vary. The different trails that you run vary as well. Hawaii, for example, it was so humid and just adjusting to a different climate was very different than what I had here. When I went to New Zealand, it was very cold, but then the gradient was very different and the trail was a bit more technical. So when you're trail running, you're constantly thinking about where you're placing your feet. You do get sometimes taken away by the scenery, but you're constantly thinking about your movement and where you are. And depending on the kind of trail that you're running on, whether that be a single trail or fire trail, can really diversify the race. It also, I think nutrition is really important with the type of trail run that you're doing, the elevation that you're doing. Mountain running, involves some form of trail running, but obviously the elevation is very different. But your preparation and everything can vary between each race that you do. And Dom, I know that you've done your training for an ultra, but the environment. There's so many different factors that can come into play with the trail race, depending on the gradient, the environment, the climate. There's lots of different variables that can really, depend on the type of race that you have. Nutrition is obviously really important throughout a trail race. And depending on the variant and the gradient, that can really affect your hydration levels and your nutrition throughout the race as well. So in Hawaii, it was super humid. As I said, I had a heat stroke at the end of the race and I was severely dehydrated. And from that race that I had over there, I did finish third, but I also realized the importance of hydrating throughout the run. the importance of carrying electrolyte, not just water, in your camel pack. But that was crazy. That was at Coolora Ranch where they filmed Jurassic Park, and that was sort of running up very steep gradient, but then also some really sharp downhill, and then some very technical and slippery single trail. So yeah, it's hard to compare one trail to another because the environment is so different, and that's sort of what I enjoy. There's some races where I'll go and travel and I'll actually get on the trail before the race just to really check it out to see what I'm up for. And I know with ultra trail races, it's good to get a hit out on the actual trail itself in preparation. But there have been some races that I've done where I've done, I've never raced on the trail before, where I guess that keeps it fairly exciting. You don't know what's to come. I did the Woody Coastal Classic. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, and didn't do that one. And it was a very hot, humid race. And fortunately, I did have electrolyte, but that race took a lot out of me, and I just wasn't sure as to what to expect. I looked at the elevation map before the race and I kind of knew what was there and what was coming. But until I actually raced it, it was very different to how it actually felt. And finishing on the sand with a K2Go soft sand, like when you're finishing a race, is pretty tough. So yeah, it was a really tough. I definitely should have prepared better for that race. Had I have done that trail beforehand, I think that definitely would have helped. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. This might be a random question, but what was it like actually having, like, what does it feel like to have heat stroke, or does it sort of fade in and out? Like, what's that experience like?
I'll tell you now, like, I'm pretty good with my pain threshold, but in that race, I still remember the like exactly the same feeling. And this is, back in 2014. My legs were heavy. I could barely breathe. My heart was thumping. I was just feeling absolutely wasted. And I knew I was in third place. So I guess when you're in a medal, contention position, you'll just do anything to get to the finish line. I could barely lift my legs, and there was actually an official who stopped me about maybe 2K from the finish line, and he said, "Mate, you are looking really, really bad. Like, I might need to get medical." And I was like, "No, I want to finish this race." And I had some water, and I kind of went against his instruction because I wanted that medal so badly. And I cannot remember much of what happened in the last 2K of that race. I could barely lift my knees. I remember seeing the flags where you finish down to the finish line. I could barely lift my knees. That was the first thing. I was barely conscious. I was sweating ridiculous, like, levels of sweat. I felt like I was going to throw up. And after that, I don't remember much until I woke up in the tent, and was going in and out of consciousness. I had to have a defibrillator, so it was pretty bad because it got where my heart stopped. And the funny thing was that when you do, like, I guess when you think you pass out and you're sort of flatlining, like, you see a lot. I didn't see anything, but I actually could hear everything that was going on around me. So I couldn't open my eyes. I felt like a flushing sound in my ear that was sort of going around in circles, and I could just hear them panicking, which wasn't the best for my sight. But after a couple of pumps when my ribs were in an excruciating amount of pain, I kind of came back to life again. And when I've looked back at that race, it's funny because I know that I can push my body to a certain extent, but then I also have this threshold where I don't want to overdo it, given that I flatlined and needed a defibrillator. But if you get to that severe level of dehydration or heat stroke, like, I probably should have just pulled out and not finished. But the inner athlete in me just, said, no, I got to get that medal. Like, I just want to cross the line. I've come all this way. I've done all that training, and I just want to finish. But now that I look back, I'm like, no, I should have just pulled out and looked after my health.
Yeah, is that because you think, obviously, one thing I've noticed in training is, when, like, you're severely pushing yourself, but you also know when something's wrong. Like, for example, when you're, maybe a good example is like when you're starting to get sick, what actual fatigue feels like, taking out that sickness factor. So obviously, do you noticed something was very wrong? Like, I think I personally, I definitely would have found it very difficult to, if it was like because it's a feeling you've never experienced before, I would imagine. So,
Yeah.
kind of pretty crazy. At what point did you like sort of get an opinion from someone when you're on in the race, or was it sort of that guy that recognized you?
Like, trust me, I knew that I was in trouble. Like, I knew that this was never how I felt before. Like, I had an experience, obviously, running in the climate of Hawaii where it's, extremely humid. And it was actually in winter. So I thought humidity levels are going to be much lower than usual. So I didn't really think too much about it. But yeah, it wasn't until that guy actually told me, I kind of knew what he already was telling me. So it was just me going against my body's wishes to finish that race, where I probably, as I said, should have stopped and hydrated and pulled out. But yeah, given that that was sort of my first real taste of international running, at that point in time, I thought, no, there's no way in hell I'm going to pull out. Like, I just want to get this done and finish and, get a medal. And since then, I'm like, it's not worth, yes, it could be worth getting a world championship medal. That's great. But if I was to die, I know that probably as runners, we probably say, oh, if I died running, then that's great. But obviously at a young age, of like, how old was I, like 28 or whatever, like I knew that I had obviously life ahead of me. So I was very, very grateful when I woke up, because I actually at one point when I was getting a defibrillator thought, wow, this might be my time. And it's not the nicest feeling to have when you know that your time might be up and you can hear everything going on. And I knew when I couldn't open my eyes, when I physically could not open, I'm like, maybe this is it. But when I pulled through, that gave me hope. I'm like, I've got another chance. So, I was able to push through. And after that experience, I did have some heart damage, had some damage done to my ribs from the defibrillator. And I was told maybe choose another sport aside from running when I saw my cardiologist. But here I am all these years later running again and still enjoying it. Even though I've just had surgery, but these are the things running throws at you. But I think if you're really passionate about what you love doing, then, regardless of what the specialists or the doctors say, you'll keep doing it and push through. But I am listening more to my body and being more in tune and being more intuitive as well. Which sometimes doesn't work into my favor, particularly at run crew sessions when they're fairly tough and you're pushing yourself. I feel like I could possibly push myself a bit more, but I know my threshold now.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
What about like your nutrition? I think you mentioned it's pretty important before, and I guess you took a lot of learnings from the heat stroke and
Yeah.
taking on electrolytes and things like that. What does your race day nutrition look like? And then I guess also your diet in general. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that there's such things as carb loading, but, generally I have a pretty well balanced diet and I make sure that, I have my proteins, carbohydrates, my vitamin C, vitamin D in most of my meals. But, for me, I think carb loading is really important because during a trail race, you virtually work through every food store in your body. Particularly when you're working hard and working with elevation, even with mountain running, that's super important. But during the race, like I'm making sure that I now, and this may have seemed really silly for years after, and I've kind of restricted myself now, but my safety net was actually running with a camel pack with electrolyte in it. And even if it was for like a 20K run or even shorter than that, I'd be running with my camel pack just because that was my security blanket after that. And obviously with reasoning as to why I did that. So for all my mountain championship races, they were only 10K or 12K for those New South Wales mountain races. But I thought, no, I've got to have sips throughout the race, make sure that I've got, general nutrition. I obviously carry gels with me as well. For some of those longer trail runs, I'll have bananas. Bananas have been like my number one go-to just for a little bit of extra food source, but also having sugar as well. I remember I did the UTA 22 and collapsed after the line, and fortunately didn't have a repeat of what happened in Hawaii, but my sugar levels were so low and that's why I collapsed. So making sure that I have sugar and include that within my diet is also important, particularly on race day as well. But in the lead up to races, that are particularly involving a lot of elevation, a lot of if it's a faster pace run as well, I'll be carb loading that whole week up to 2 weeks before the race as well. But I think one thing for me, I don't know if you guys experience this as well, when you're working full time and in my role as year advisor, there are times where, I may not have time to eat lunch because I'm working pretty hard throughout the day, but I'm making it a priority now just to make sure I don't skip meals and, have, my sandwich or my banana and have little snacks just to make sure that I've got enough energy to train at the end of the day. Because when I don't have that nutrition, generally, I just feel extremely fatigued. And, with the amount of mileage that we're doing, we've got to keep that nutrition going. So, yeah, that's I think important.
So do you train a decent amount in the afternoon after work, or are you a morning trainer as well?
It's actually interesting. I used to definitely be more of an afternoon athlete, but I've actually changed a lot of my training now to the morning. So I'm setting my alarm for 5 a.m. just because I'm now feeling like I've got more energy first thing in the morning as opposed to a full day at school and then doing co-curricular commitments and getting home at 6 p.m. I'm just feeling pretty smashed. So doing my sessions in the morning, I think, has been really helpful just for energy level's sake.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's one thing I noticed is I pretty much only train in the morning just because I feel after work pretty mentally fatigued. And it just feels like more of an effort. It just feels like more of an effort. And especially because you're maybe it could be all in my head, but the willpower element as well. Like I'm much more susceptible to missing missing a run in the afternoon, and you just feel weaker. So yeah, it must be
Yeah.
common, surely.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I hate missing sessions. I get
Mm.
frustrated as long as I can get something in. I know that I'm gonna. If I set my alarm in the morning and don't sleep through it, I think it takes a couple of weeks to actually adapt to morning sessions.
Yeah.
Ideally, it would be good if I could do it a bit later, as opposed to 5:30 or 6 a.m. But yeah, once you condition your body and get it done first thing, I feel like I feel more awake and like my energy levels are lifted for the rest of the workday, as opposed to in the evening where I just feel like rubbish and can
Yeah.
barely get a tempo based session. If you're doing an easy run after work, I think it's doable. But if you were to do a threshold or tempo or speed based session after work after a long day, I just feel like the
Yeah.
quality sometimes isn't there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I remember like track. We used to Dom and I used to do some track workouts, and they were what's the had a mental blank, but at the Bay Run, the track there.
Rotary or
Um,
Looks like he's
sorry,
just
Smithy.
frozen.
I think yeah, you've cut
so
out.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry. Am I
that's it.
back? Am I back?
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
We
back.
had
You're
such a
back.
good run, mate. I've been running off my 4G. I've been I've been proud of the way this phone's held up. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, we're doing sessions on the track at around the track
Rotary
near the
near
bay.
Chatswood.
Yeah. Oh no,
Oh, at
near
the
the
Bay,
bay.
King
Yeah,
George.
King
Yeah.
George. That's it. And they're in the
yeah,
afternoon, and it's just so much harder to G up in the afternoon. But
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I guess. Oh yeah, what's coaching like? You mentioned you were doing some coaching.
Well, through my school at Redlands, I'm the head of track and field and cross country. So I do a Friday afternoon session down at Balmoral Oval, which is sort of done through Mosman Athletics Club. And then I also coach on Wednesday afternoons and have my own little squad. But I have a bunch of junior athletes. And, I think the one thing for me working as a teacher, particularly, has taught me the importance of holistic coaching. So, I understand the training load, I have a good understanding of training load on the development of junior athletes, having been through that myself. But then also understanding all the other commitments that are involved. Like as a high school student working, at a private school, they're doing so much extra. They're doing, team sports, they're doing music lessons and everything. There's so many things on in a day. So, if one of my athletes is feeling super tired in the afternoon, or I can just feel like they're not at their peak energy levels, I try and adjust the session, but I still try and get a good quality session in. But I think having the experience that I've had have had as an athlete growing up, I kind of know what works best, how you feel, but then also how to get a good quality session in as well. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Well, the one thing I've always wondered is coaching different people, how you manage, because obviously everyone has different sort of goals and ambitions with running. Is that something you have to manage? Like, are you making sure that people are very engaged in it, or are you sort of advising only people that are very sort of interested to pursue it? Because obviously it's quite a pain. Like, you really have to love it.
Of
In my
course.
view, yeah. So
Yeah, I guess one thing I say to my athletes is that I only want you to train, if you enjoy and you're absolutely passionate about the running. I know that as a junior athlete, you're kind of getting a taste for different sports, and I completely understand. Like, I had an athlete who loved their team sports, and they just found it very hard to be disciplined individually to run, because it does require a lot of self-discipline. So I actually got that athlete to pursue their passion of team sports, whereas the runners that I am coaching now are 100% committed and passionate about running. I train, a junior school girl who's 13. Then I've got an 18-year-old, student who's just started at university, and obviously going from that transition to high school to university is quite different. And social life gets in the way, and all those things start to creep in as well. But I think you're right in saying that understanding the athlete's goal is super important, because that's sort of what keeps the athlete motivation. What keeps my relationship with that athlete going as well is keeping that particular athlete driven to achieving their desired goals, and making sure that they attend and that they're ideally consistent with the training that they're doing as well, is super important. But I run, just say I'm doing, say, I don't know, with my athletes, 12 400s. Depending on the age of the athlete, I might get, the 12-year-old athlete to skip every second, 400, for example. Whereas with my 18-year-old athlete, I'll get him to do every single one. So I do try and tailor the session and work with the different levels of runners that I'm working with as well. But it can be quite challenging. But I think that the first thing is commitment, and then also passion. If you've got those two things in an athlete, then it makes it easier as a coach to actually train the athlete.
how long if you mentioned passion, how long do you have to give people, like, say if they're trying it out, obviously they've got to um, give it a little bit of a go. How long do you see people hanging on and then sort of making a change? Because obviously it's something that's pretty hard to love at first, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, one thing, this is another thing that I do within my training sessions. I think it's really, really important as a coach of junior athletes to really diversify the training sessions. So I love training down at Balmoral Oval, because we've got the Balmoral Stairs, we've got Middlehead Road that's up the road from where Balmoral Oval is. We've got the oval itself, we've got the beach. So I feel like I keep my athletes fairly engaged through the different types of training sessions that I do that still, work the athlete hard. But on that note, I've had the student who decided to take on team sports. That was after around 12 months of running. So it wasn't for 12 months that she then decided, look, I love doing my football. That's what I'm really passionate about. And she went on to pursue that. So, it does take some time, but I feel like I'm a pretty good coach at being personable. And I think that's a really important factor as a coach, is relating well to your athletes and making sure that you're checking in and doing that. And I think I've done that well. And that might be due to my teaching background and my type of personality. But aside from that one student, most of my athletes have hung around for the last 5 years. So, I feel like that's given me some confidence that I'm doing the right thing. I'm mentoring my athletes in a way as well, and helping them with their transition, as a teenager through to a young adult, and giving them good direction as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a it's a big thing to undertake for sure. Is coaching, because obviously you mentioned being personable, but one of the things I've noticed working with Sally is you can really tell that she cares
Yes.
100% about the outcome, and
Yeah.
that's one thing I've noticed is, like, if you were to get a coach that's sort of like, I've had coaches in the not running coaches. This is like at school, right? And you can always tell when someone's not invested in you, even if they're like sort of saying they are. But it's like
Yeah,
sort of, you can just feel it, if that makes
absolutely.
sense. So,
Yeah.
but it's challenging
Yeah.
because I imagine it's challenging because there's so like different people and they all have, they're all individuals. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it seemed really interesting.
Yeah, and different athletes have different personalities. Like I work a lot of, like a few of my athletes that I've coached are introverted, and you don't
Mm,
get much out of them. But once you start building that good connection, they start opening up, and I feel like it's so important for communication between the athlete and the coach. It might be from a similar thing with asking them, "How are you feeling today?" Or were you happy with that race? What can we do to improve? And yeah, keeping that positive relationship going. I think once you've got that, and they have faith that you have that general interest and that genuine interest, as you said, Luke, then they'll put they'll put more effort into their training and competition.
mm,
So I think that's really important. I think the other thing is as well, and this is one thing I'm really focused on as a junior coach, is that it's really important not to overtrain junior runners from a young age. I'm all for doing the 2 sessions a week and leaving it at that. I get moving into high school and beyond. I think if I myself personally had started running from an older age, I think I'd feel my legs may feel a little bit fresher, but I'm very grateful for the experience that I've had and for the coaches that I've had and from what I've learned. But I think not overdoing it, particularly when a teenager is going through puberty and development, particularly female athletes, it's really important to have that understanding so that you're not over pushing them that might restrict their growth. Same for boys as well. You've got to allow for growth and for muscle development, but I think that's you really need to know and understand how teenagers and how the physical body grows as an
mm.
athlete.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's some really, I've really enjoyed that insight. So thank you. I think we will wrap up with the standard question that we've been asking everyone. Dom, sorry, I'll throw to you. Do you have any sort of things you want to touch on?
Oh, no, that's all good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Um,
Final question.
Final question. Go on, Dom.
Usually I've asked everyone what their favourite race is and why. I don't know. Are there any
well,
races?
so my favorite race would probably have to be the Sydney 10. I did it 12 months ago. This was prior to my injury, and I just love how fast it is. I remember on the day I don't know if you guys ran that Sydney 10 where there was just fog, but there's just something about the race that brings the whole community together. It's fun, it's competitive, and it's fast. And I ran a good solid PB that day as well. So, yeah, definitely the Sydney 10. I know it's not a trail race, but it's definitely a good community race.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah, it is a
Fast
good
and
one.
yeah,
Yeah,
fast and brings out a lot of PBs and the best out of a lot of athletes, and it definitely is a good atmosphere.
Mm.
But
yeah,
all right, well, thanks Nick for joining, and wishing you obviously all the best in recovering with your from your injury. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to probably catching up at some point, and also just seeing you come out the other side of that battle you're going through at the moment. But yeah, thank you very much
Yeah.
for joining us as well.
yeah. Thanks so much, Luke, and thank you, Dom, as well, for the opportunity to come and speak about everything running related. And you guys are doing an awesome job with your podcast and everything else. You're keeping the running community engaged. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Nick.
Pleasure.